salt extraction glands. Think of our tear glands, kind of tasted tear, it's kind of salty. Some version of that gland, iguanas have developed. Yeah, that's a recurring theme here, surviving the dry season. There's lots of food on land, the ocean tends to suffer, and then it flips during the dry season. Everything in the ocean tends to do very well, and everything on land doesn't survive. This time of year is what defines the finch species. During the wet season, there's food for everybody. During the dry season is when the specialists, it's really important for them to specialize in whatever's left. Okay. We're gonna have to. See that one? Much noise. Sometimes we don't keep the 2 meters, they break it, but every other time try to move back slowly. Alright, you can move back a little bit more. Let's try giving him a little more space. Maybe he wants to cross. But as you can see, zero fear of humans. That's because they don't see humans as a threat.
So, does that mean that they're overpopulated here because there's no predators?
No. They have other pests, such as rats and cats, which will prey on the young ones. But for an adult like this doesn't have any enemies here. Once he gets to this size, he's fine. Aquí no puedes pasar, Berito. Yo tengo uno medio. Let's stay on the right side here. I'm gonna let Berito pass. So as that crab molts the shell, that shell will be crushed. The calcium carbonate in the shell, all of the collagen bonds that hold it together, that'll all go away with sunlight. It'll break it down. But the calcium carbonate that's been accumulated by the shell, that'll all be left here on the beach. It'll be crushed down, and it'll become part of the beach. Maybe if we see a crab molt, I can grab it and crush it. We can see how it turns into plastic, becomes part of the beach. And then the rest is seashells.
So then sunlight.
Solid lightfoots are native, so we find them here and other places. Aquí está, mira cómo. Aquí es. Aquí está, mira cómo. Aquí es. Okay, so well, we were. Sí, aquí podemos parar. Igual lo del sechi lo hacemos cuando estamos regresando al barco, porque tiene que estar profundo para hacer el sechi. Perfect. So just where we are to start. Fernandina, this is the youngest island of Galapagos. So we're talking right now about the age of certain parts of this volcano that we're looking at. This is La Cumbre on Fernandina. We're looking at fresh black lava flows, but we're also pointing out a few little hills that peek out from the fresh flows. And I'm pointing out the color of these hills. These hills they're a darkish brown, reddish, rusty color. And those hills are older than the lava flows that surround them. One of the ways we can tell is because of the color. The color sticks out because that little hill has had more time exposed to the air, more time to oxidize. The iron has given it that color, whereas the fresh lava flows that surround it are still very black. But give them enough time and they will also start to change and turn a little bit reddish orange. Southern Islands. Those are the bit influenced more
green
by
algae? Ulva is green algae?
the ulva of is the green algae.
Okay.
Mangroves here. None of the mangroves that we find are endemic. All mangroves here are native. That's because of their dispersal method. You know, they send these seeds out that cover thousands of miles, and so because they're so good at spreading seeds, they don't become endemic. You know, we find the same. It's getting most of that from the air too. We got a little bit of rain. Remember, cacti are succulent plants. They can store water for a long time. And then, if you see, these guys aren't very green.
No.
Cactus has a different method for photosynthesis that uses a lot less water.
I forgot. What was it called?
I can't even remember it either.
Oh my god.
But it's similar to photosynthesis,
Yes,
but not exactly
cam.
the same.
Cam photosynthesis. Cam.
Yeah, something like that.
It goes through another process. I can't. Oh my god.
It's because I usually do a tiny talk on cormorants, but I'm not doing it this cruise. But we can look at them. We're looking at them right here. They are the only flightless cormorants. Okay? There's about 40 species of cormorant in the world, but they are the only ones that don't fly. We believe, though, that their ancestors did fly at some point. Now let's look at the genetics of the cormorants and why they are how they are. They have stubbed wings. Look at those little wings. Look at those little wings. Now, if we look into their genes, what we find is there's a deletion in the CUX1 gene. Okay? And that gene is responsible for Brazilian itself. And it pretty much leads to deformities in other animals. So if we have the same gene deletion in mice or in humans, we'll get skeletal syndrome. So we'll get people with stunted rib cages and very short arms. That's what's happening here.
Wow.
In this case, though, it seems to be an advantage for them. Okay?
Okay, so it's an advantageous mutation.
It is. But that's only because of where they are. See, in other parts of the world,
They'd have to fly.
Exactly. Losing the ability to fly is not helpful. Okay? Being able to fly lets you escape from predators, maybe lets you hunt in new areas. So most of the time, being able to fly is a huge advantage. But here in Galapagos, where the food is plentiful, what ended up being selected isn't so much the ability to fly, but the ability to swim effectively. Okay? And they're most likely the best swimmers of the cormorants. They can hold their breath for around 15 minutes. They have very powerful legs. Even their feathers have shifted away from the structures that we see in other birds. Their body feathers are these hollow tube-like structures that we see in dinosaurs. Very similar to the feathers that we expect dinosaurs to have had. And what that means is they're really good at ocean hunting. They're really good at swimming. Obviously, they can't fly. But how we think this happened, how the gene was selected, first, chance, right? It's a random mutation. We don't think it's a single mutation. Sure, the gene CUX1 is one of the important factors. We know what it does in humans. That's just because we've studied that gene in humans. But that doesn't explain why the flightless cormorant is the way it is on its own. There's a lot more mutations. There's a lot more, probably, there's a lot more
genes involved.
More genes, not just genes, but also epigenetics as well, probably involved. We don't understand that fully, but it's cool to have reference in something that we have studied. We know this gene causes stunted rib cage and short arms in humans, and it's exactly what we see in cormorants. With the cormorants, they don't really use their wings to swim. Okay? They use their legs to swim. So if you have long wings, that's a disadvantage because they have to drag them underwater. And because they don't have to escape from predators, the biggest limiting factor for them is going to be food. And we believe that El Nino has a very important role in cormorants becoming flightless. Because during El Nino events, food becomes scarce. And the cormorants of Galapagos Islands has a very low, what was the word? Heterozygosity. Yeah, tortuosity, let's just say gene variation within the same species. So let's say, for a comparison to understand it with humans, let's say we have just a few families from a small town in the middle of the States compared to all of North America. If you're just looking at a small town, we'd have a few, a little bit of inbreeding. Okay. That's kind of what I'm looking at here. Very limited
Like
genes,
a bottleneck almost.
like a bottleneck, and that's exactly actually leads me to the next point. We see that as evidence of, because they're all kind of slightly, we see that as evidence of multiple bottleneck events in which the whole population of cormorants was reduced to around maybe 1,500 multiple times. And so maybe over the course of just a few thousand years, maybe a couple of years, we don't really know how quickly this happened. We know there are at least 2 million years separated from those relatives. But we know that, we think at least, that that's what happened. That's what pushed them to become different species and change so rapidly. Is bottleneck events that lock down those genes that are normally disadvantageous, but in this case let them thrive in tougher conditions. I don't know if that's understood.
Yeah, no, that was a good.
So it's not unique, but it is unique in how recent it is and how we have a bit of proof here as to we can infer what happened based on this. You have to spend so much to see Galapagos. If you do island hopping, you can save a lot of money by just visiting the islands. Go.
Hello again, guys. Now we're doing water testing the clarity of water using an old-fashioned tool from 200 years ago that's just as good today. And our tour guide's going to tell you all about it.
So this is a Shetchi disc. What it does is we lower this into the water and we look at when it disappears. So when it disappears, we mark the depth at which it disappeared, called the Shetchi depth. It's a useful tool for measuring the clarity of the water. But in different scenarios, it can tell us either about the amount of plankton. So if there's an algae bloom or there's a lot of plankton or zooplankton, the clarity of the water will be reduced. But it's also useful in rivers and lakes to see if there's been contamination by, let's say, nitrogen fertilizers being, spewed into the lakes. Then we'll see a lot of algae growing in the river, and that can choke out other wildlife. So it's important to measure that. And this is a tool that anybody can use without any advanced or expensive equipment, and we can measure the clarity of the water with that. Very simple tool. You can make this at home.
How do you spell Sechi?
S-E, I think it's C-C-H-I.
That will guarantee the survival of those tortoises once they get repatriated back to their natural habitat. Okay? And that will happen when they get 8 years old, 10 years old. But before they're going to be released, all of them, they're going to be marked with a pig tag, which is a very small rice with a number on it that the rangers will make the implantation of that in one of the rear legs. The goal to work like that is that
Yeah.
These are all saddleback.
beautiful tortoise, beautiful tortoise. They're fighting. Make your video. That's the way they fight. The tallest one is going to be the winner. That's the way they fight. Whoa, $100 video. Actually, I recommend to take pictures here because the tortoises, they're used to see people every day. So they are posing for you. Once we go into nature, they won't be posing like that. Maybe they're gonna hide into the shell once we try to get close of them. So this is the best area to get a picture of giant tortoise. They are posing for you because they are used to see people every day. What a picture! What a picture in video. Let's be patient. Let's be patient. They're gonna fight again. Look at that. It's a fight. The tallest one is gonna be the winner. Look at that. And the winner is. Oh my God! Look at that one. Oh my God. Sorry. I underestimate you. Is everything you got?
What are they fighting about? Just Simples. The road.
Not to waste it. Yeah, come on, let's go. You don't piece of No lunch for you. You're good.
Okay, we'll see you later.
Yeah, that's, oh Ashley, that's a really good picture. That one I need. Hold on a second. Excuse me.
So look at the difference. Clean, not clean. So ahí lo traes encima.
Aquí le que ponen unos 5 o 6 kilos, nos demora 40 minutos la tostada.
So about 5 or 6 kilos for 40 minutes to roast the coffee. Of course, you have manual like that.
Una, dos, tres.
Right. Okay.
Now walk a little bit more because there's more groups coming, right?
I gotta get a video of that. Yeah. These are the Galapagos tortoises, the Galapagos Islands.
We're lucky to see that many tortoises. There's sometimes that we came here and we walked for hours just to see one.
Whoa.
Yeah, but today is not that day. Today it seems that everybody got my invitation last night, so that's why all of them are here. So, you might be wondering why we came to this private ranch. The reason why we came here is because these droppings, you will observe that whatever they feed on preserve the same shape, just without the juice. So researchers think that due to that specific diet, just surviving with the plant juice is the reason why they have developed the long longevity that we estimate. A lot of food available, so the only thing they need to do is to develop a big shell, a round shell. So this is a male that is about 100, 103 years old. Remember that male tortoises are bigger in size. Male tortoises, the underpart that we call the plaster is concave. And also male tortoises will have a long tail. Female tortoises, they are smaller in size. The underpart, the plaster is. They can hear us. That one is moving, the $100 picture that everybody's waiting here when they came to Galapagos Islands to make that video.
Adelante, dame 10 minutos más, porfa. ¿Cómo está el grupo? Perfecto, yo ya en 10 días estaría regresando también. Ah, listo, entonces estamos bien todos. Conrad, ¿cómo estás?
What kind of bird is that? One making that noise.
If I not wrong, that's the endemic bird that we call pachai. It's a small bird that you will see running very fast around.
What color is it?
I know. Violet greenish. Oh, these two. It's also a very good video to document how tortoises are feeding on vegetation. Not always when you came here, you have the opportunity to make this type of videos because sometimes they don't move.
Yeah.
Like those over there, they are not moving.
Jagger and Keith Richards. Probably about the same age.
We are inside a lava tunnel. Very close quarters. Very close quarters.
claimed to be never claimed to be very bright. Now I gotta walk backwards the other way.
We used to have some of that stuff a long time ago.
That's what they do?
Somebody just said they saw a turtle.
Everybody just avoid to stand up on rocks, right? Be careful with the rocks right there.
Don't touch it.
Two juvenile sea lions coming right up to us.
Gotta go back, everyone. Gotta go back.
Two juvenile sea lions. Hello. So adorable. Very playful. Not afraid. Aww.
Black feathers underneath. They are not fully pink. So, for example, right now with these new ones that arrive, we see a change in the tones of the color, right? So probably the other ones that were there first were juveniles. It looks a little bit like that because of the color of the feathers. Flamingos. So we are going to have some time here to walk along the beach. But the thing is that we cannot get close to the water. Here we have lots of stingers. Because the sand is really soft, it covers the stingrays, so that's why we don't go into the water, okay? And also we are going to avoid these sand dunes along here because these are nesting grounds of the sea turtle. As you can notice, we have lots of coals around this area, and it's because these are the rest, okay? So we are not going to